How would you like to come home to a bartender who will fix you any cocktail you want?
I'll have an old-fashioned.
I'll have a margarita.
Now you can with the new Bartesian Duet home cocktail maker. The new Bartesian Duet, Bartesian's most compact cocktail maker, crafts premium cocktails at the touch of a button. Choose from over 50 different cocktails. You'll always get freshly mixed, perfectly balanced cocktails with the Bartesian Duet cocktail maker. And now, get our best deal ever on the new Bartesian Duet, plus free shipping when you go to bartesian.com/cocktail. Entertaining? The Bartesian Duet is ideal for parties. No need to stock all kinds of mixers for complicated recipes. Every guest gets the cocktail of their choice in seconds. Bartesian makes a wonderful gift for anyone who loves a fine premium cocktail. And now, get our best deal ever on the new Bartesian Duet, plus free shipping when you go to bartesian.com/cocktail. Hurry, offer ends soon. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail. Bartesian.com/cocktail.
All aboard for your chance to win $1,000 every week until December 28th. That's right, $1,000 cash just in time for the holidays. To hop on board, just head to ChurchillMortgage.com and punch your ticket to the Churchill Express giveaway. Visit ChurchillMortgage.com for your chance to win big.
This is a paid advertisement. NMLS ID 1591. NMLSConsumerAccess.org. Equal housing lender. 1749 Mallory Lane, Suite 100, Brentwood, Tennessee 37027.
Steering wheel. Left steering wheel here. Steering wheel. Hey. Hey. Steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to him. Come on. Whoa. You like my bass? You like it? How the f*** is that possible?
I'm driving like a grandma.
Get that, Ralph. Did you hear me?
On the radio.
Ralph, acknowledge.
Now, come on, close him down and kill him. We've got a lunatic on the track down the Hanger Station. I am so annoyed.
Welcome back inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 754. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camber. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do tonight. For your kind consideration, we're going to cover some news in Formula One because on the off-race weekends, that's what Grace and I do, which of course means that I have to introduce my guest tonight, which flies in nowhere. She's flying in digitally to this call. You know her. You love her. That's right. All the way in our nation's capital, nestled in the swamp, as she calls it. In the cooling swamp, I might add. It is fall time. It's the cold and flu season, and she's got her hoodie on to prove it. You know her. You love her. It's the redoubtable Grace! Grace, how you doing?
I thought there was a sneeze there. Sorry.
Oh, man, don't you hate that? It's like, oh, catch it, pinch the nose.
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah, right? It got cold. Saturday, it was like 90 degrees and 100% humidity. It was like turkey, right? Like,
I know.
I don't understand why people don't understand that if it's 100% humidity, it's not going to dry. That seemed to be a lost concept. Like, the track's not drying. Right. Humidity. Like, have you people never been someplace hot? So anyway, so it was kind of like the Turkish Grand Prix here, and then big storm came through, and now it's freezing. So fall has arrived.
Well, if you follow my social media, my dog wakes me up every morning like at 5 a.m. He's ready to go for a walk, and it's like 68, 65 in the mornings at 5 a.m. And the other morning it was 44, and I wasn't even thinking about it. I put on light summer cottons, and I'm out there walking around freezing. And it's crazy. So anyway, but it's getting chilly. Love your Rossi hoodie though.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and for those of you who listen but weren't aware, we also upload these podcasts to YouTube, so you can actually see two talking heads discuss their favorite sport. That's what we do.
That's right.
And, so anyway, there is
it's
that.
It's exciting.
Yeah, there is that.
Good times.
People. Some people say they like to see the podcast on YouTube because, the body language and the arm waving and all that.
Well, that's the only way you get to see the cat shenanigans as well. So
yeah, that's true. And the cat tree, the Burj Khalifa of cat trees there. Yes.
That's right. That's the one.
That's always good. So we're going to cover some news. Grace, any thoughts coming out of the Turkish Grand Prix that Paul and I reviewed last week? Anything that caught your eye? Anything that you'd like to talk about?
I mean, beside the fact that the track was never going to dry, which I already mentioned.
Yeah. 97% humidity, and it was not
I did want to mention that I'm very harsh often about the graphics that, they show, and that like they'll show like the AWS, and you're like, these numbers are meaningless. You can't just like put information out there without interpretation or some sort of organization. Like, I don't know what this means. So I feel like I should give props where props are due, that I think they actually did during qualifying a very good job. They did this graphic where it was kind of like a heads up display, like you would have in a car, in some cars.
Yeah.
Right? You can see it on the windshield. And it not only showed you the turns, but it showed you how open or closed the turn was as well. So you could actually watch it and know what was coming up. And so that graphic, coupled with Jensen Button's commentary, was excellent. And so we need to do, first of all, I've already said that I really think they should just hire Jensen Button. Martin Brundle, fine, you're fine, but let's put Jensen Button in the commentary booth. He just does such a better job of talking about things, and he keeps Crofty down to like some normal range of excitement, which is good as well, right? And so he's kind of able to actually provide useful information as opposed to whatever it is that Crofty provides. But I really just thought that graphic coupled with Jensen Button was really very useful. And I feel like I should, give her props, especially because like I said, it wasn't just like, oh, this is a left and this is a right, but it actually showed you how, like you would get it in a, like a rally car, like how open or closed that turn was. So you could really get a sense of how the track was. And then I think it also helps because one of the things I've often said that is hard is that as a fan, you often get the overhead view of a track, but then during a race, you only get the driver view, view of the traffic of the track. So it's hard to know, like, oh, and he's into turn 8, and you're like, I don't know, is turn 8 this squiggly bit or this squiggly bit? Because to see it flat as a 2D graphic and then forward, and you're like, I know because that building's there. Well, that's not really a helpful reason or way to know that that's turn 8. And so I think that transition is hard. And so that kind of graphic where they show you the turns, they show you what's coming up, and they show you the turn number is very helpful because then you're able to take that like, oh, Catalunya looks like this shape. Oh, and this little, crab armpit over here is turn 8. Oh, I got it now. Okay.
Right.
So I think it helps to make that transition for a viewer because you've never walked that. Well, I've never walked Catalunya, but I know that when I've been to Canada several times and I've walked the track of Canada. And so it's so much easier to watch Canada because I've walked that track, or Austin, right? Because I've walked that track. But if I've never walked, 90% of the tracks they go to. So I think you really need that kind of input.
Right.
Because it's kind of hard to catch otherwise.
I agree. I think for those of us who've been watching Formula One for a long time, we take a lot of those corners and, the track layouts and kind of the evolution of which corners used to be daunting back in the day that aren't so much now, given the current Formula One cars and their ability to manage the downforce levels, et cetera. I think of the 130R Japan. That's not the real difficult corner it used to be. Now it's spoon, and so those things change over time. But I would think that any of the graphics for, there's a lot of newer fans to Formula One, and I would think that anything that AWS could help to try to learn track corners, what they're experiencing, the importance of those corners, that's all good. I agree.
Right. And I think it is the trend, as we have learned from now 2 wet races. It is not just the analytics, but it is the interpretation of those analytics and how you use that information that is actually what's useful. Not just here's the weather report or here's where you should come in comparison to Perez, right? It's how you use that information to make a decision. That's what's really interesting and is what is a skill. So, all right. So right on Formula One, FIA, AWS.
Hey,
writing
look,
a useful graphic.
Yeah, we've kicked them in the growing area several times over that, and so when they get it right, well, sure. But when they get it right, we're not beyond praise.
That's correct. That's correct. So I will put in a pitch one more time because I know that FIA is listening, or that Sky Sport is listening. Just hire Jensen Button, Karun Chandhok, Ant Davidson, and it's fine. That's all we need.
See, I like PDR. And Ant and Martin and JB, I think they're all really good. And they all really add a lot to the broadcast. So that's the people that I tend to gravitate towards.
You can never get rid of
Ted's awesome. Ted's awesome. I love Ted's quirkiness. I love his delivery, his idiom, sir. Yes, idiom. I love his. It's just great.
I just feel Ted's Notebook. It's always some version of the cameraman like over here, and then you turn back and Ted's gone. Who knows? He just wandered away.
He's down the pit lane down there. Yeah, it's great.
Who knows?
Great
Who
stuff.
knows where he wandered off to? But so I think that I'm fine with keeping. I kind of like Martin Brundle being out on the track guy and keeping Jenson Button in the commentary booth. I think he does really well, and they have
he does
a good interplay with each other. So
JB does a great job, and JB's kind of a natural for it. And when he first started getting in there, it was, but now he's kind of getting a broadcaster chops, that kind of go along with it. Right. I will say though, but Martin gets the plot. He totally gets the plot.
Yeah.
Totally gets the plot. He gets it. He's brilliant at it. He does a great job at it. I remember I went back and watched that video multiple times, watching Lando's crash at Eau Rouge. I'll be damned if I could see. Martin was looking out and he has different camera angles, but from the broadcast, I couldn't tell that car was going around. When he said, did that McLaren just go around? But from the view of the broadcast, I couldn't tell that. So, but it was brilliant. He called it. And no, Martin's awesome. Love that guy.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right, let's talk about some news, shall we? Some F1 news. Well, Grace, Formula One has released its 2022 calendar, and it features a
700 races.
732 races. Yes. No, it's 23 races.
Might as well be.
Right. So first up, let's just kind of go through my bullet points, and then we'll sort of unpack it and get your take on it, Grace.
Sure.
So first up, China is off the calendar as F1 says, quote, due to ongoing pandemic conditions, China will not be included on the 2022 calendar. China will be restored to the calendar as soon as conditions allow, end quote. So China right out in 2022. So just go ahead and just cross that off your bucket list, your to-do list. Damn it! No China.
Whose list was that on? Nobody's. Even the people of China don't have it on their list.
Clearly. Yeah, they had to bus children in on buses to fill the grandstand. Remember those days? Yeah. So anyway, so there you go. So that's off. All right. So there were a few tracks, if you recall, 2019, going along, Syrian, action, you shall not pass. Syrian, no. Anyway, I love that part. So here's the thing. You'll recall in 2019, going along, then COVID came along, 2020, they had to cobble together a season, which you and I praised F1 heavily for cobbling together 17 races that they did. And then even in this year, still coming out with, 22 races. And part of that plan was revisiting circuits in Europe that they hadn't been racing at due to the expense. So there were a few tracks added during COVID that assisted F1 in making it a fuller calendar in 2020 and 2021. But a few of these, interestingly, are still on the 2022 list with an asterisk. And I find that interesting because they were off the list in 2019 due to the enormity of the race sanctioning fee. They couldn't afford it. But COVID was a complete rethink, and Formula One had to, okay, wait a minute, all bets are off. We're not charging the big $25 million a year, whatever it is. Please just have us. We'll cover it. Whatever those deals were, they were for a fraction, pennies on the dollar, what they normally would have paid. So what I find interesting now is that Formula One either they feel very confident that tracks like Imola are going to re-up for next year, and they feel confident that the finances are there to pay whatever fee they're asking, or they're very, very opportunistic in thinking that it will be on there, because I'm having a hard time understanding if Imola couldn't afford it in 2019, what makes anyone think they can afford it in 2022?
They should be less likely to afford it.
You would think. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So I'm interested I guess I'm curious if their inclusion is based on some reduced fee program continuing, or if the asterisk, subject to contract, is asking full price. And if so, I don't see how these tracks are going to afford MSRP, pricing that they couldn't afford in 2019. So there are a few of those, most notably in the asterisk, the single asterisk column, which is subject to contract, is Spain. First up. Barcelona! What? Yeah. So Barcelona. So Spain is already up for debate. Imola, as I mentioned, Singapore, and Austin. Right? So Austin's 10-year deal is up at the end of this year. And
that's right.
Yeah. So if Bobby doesn't re-up, this weekend could be the last race in Austin for some time, and it could deny the braggadocious F1 press release who was really bragging about having 2 races in the U.S. this year. Maybe not if Bobby doesn't re-up. And I have to think that Bobby went along and paid that exorbitant fee for all these years out of the Texas Major Events Fund that they used. And I have to think at this point, he's thinking, ain't no way I'm paying those prices. So he's going to want to renegotiate a lower price. He's going to tell Formula One about you giving away races over the last 2 years.
Right.
And Formula One's answer is going to be, yes, but we have the Miami Gardens Grand Prix. And so we don't, we already have a U.S. Grand Prix, Bobby. So if you want to be the second Grand Prix in America, you are going to have to pay those prices. It'll be interesting to see how that's negotiated.
The European Grand Prix.
Yeah, right. The America's Grand Prix.
Right.
Right, whatever it is, so that's interesting. Also, squeezing this many races in a season means that some of them are being held during seasons that would normally present inclement weather challenges, like Japan in October, Sochi in September, or Miami in May. And Peter posted, our friend Peter posted that, and I thought it was a great point. I kind of overlooked that, but he made a great point, which, especially Miami in May, which one would have thought they would have liked to coincide the Miami race with Canada, instead of making it its own standalone freight in May, and then to turn around and go right back to Europe, and then to turn around and come right back to Canada. And It seemed like that would have made freight easier, less one-off freight bill, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you'd want all 3 of them to be, or 4, whatever.
Well, and even if you couldn't, you could do Miami and Canada, and then come later the fall and do
Mexico and Brazil.
Exactly. You could do Austin, Mexico, and Brazil, right?
Right.
Just in my head, that's what I'm thinking. But what the heck do I know?
Do all 5 in a row, and I can just take like a month and a half off work.
Right. You could go,
like it's the Grateful Dead. We'll just get a bus. We'll just follow them from Canada all the way down to maybe not Brazil. We'll follow them to Mexico.
Right. You could you and your husband just get a van and just live in the van and just, travel all the way from Canada all the way down to Sao Paulo. Sell some veggie burritos. It'd be great.
Good times.
Awesome. So there's that. And then the calendar has one more race than this year. It's 23, but less time to do it in.
Right, because the season ends in like December this year.
Right, and now it will end in November next year. This means that in order to do it, they have two triple header sessions, which isn't easy for teams.
That's crazy. That's nuts.
And there's been some grousing already in the press from, guess who?
Get down.
Toto Wolff, of course, who would like to see mandatory staff rotations. This would mean that teams couldn't skirt the mandatory rotations because it would be more expensive to do that. But this would ensure that all teams incur the expense of doing that so nobody could cheap out. And I'm looking at you, Gunther. And so in that case, he would like to see that. Now, also in the press talking about this was your friend and mine over at McLaren.
Nice, Ron.
Andreas Seidel, who said this, quote, "The most important thing is that we don't further increase the number of races per year. What we have in place now is already too much of a burden that we put on our people. We should avoid triple headers."
How would you like to come home to a bartender who will fix you any cocktail you want?
I'll have an old-fashioned.
I'll have a margarita.
Now you can with the new Bartesian Duet home cocktail maker. The new Bartesian Duet, Bartesian's most compact cocktail maker, crafts premium cocktails at the touch of a button. Choose from over 50 different cocktails. You'll always get freshly mixed, perfectly balanced cocktails with the Bartesian Duet cocktail maker. And now, get our best deal ever on the new Bartesian Duet, plus free shipping when you go to bartesian.com/cocktail. Entertaining? The Bartesian Duet is ideal for parties. No need to stock all kinds of mixers for complicated recipes. Every guest gets the cocktail of their choice in seconds. Bartesian makes a wonderful gift for anyone who loves a fine premium cocktail. And now, get our best deal ever on the new Bartesian Duet, plus free shipping when you go to bartesian.com/cocktail. Hurry, offer ends soon. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail. Bartesian.com/cocktail.
All aboard for your chance to win $1,000 every week until December 28th. That's right, $1,000 cash just in time for the holidays. To hop on board, just head to ChurchillMortgage.com and punch your ticket to the Churchill Express giveaway. Visit ChurchillMortgage.com for your chance to win big.
This is a paid advertisement. NMLS ID 1591. NMLSConsumerAccess.org. Equal housing lender. 1749 Mallory Lane, Suite 100, Brentwood, Tennessee 37027.
They're gonna have more. I mean, right? We all work jobs, and they say things like, "We're just gonna try this once and just see how it goes." That means we're gonna do it forever.
Right. And it's the old, we're just going to try a sprint race once or twice. Now we have 7.
Right. So, yeah, Andreas, I don't know how this goes because it's what happens to all of us. Management says, well, just bear with us. We're just trying it. If it doesn't work, we'll go back to the old ways. They never do. They won't. They will add more races and condense the calendar
more races, more triple headers. It'll just, at some point it's going to be
Mass hysteria.
It's going to be crazy. Let's see. I guess to add it all, let me get your thought on this.
Okay.
And for you listening, feel free to opine. You can go to our website in the comment section of this podcast and listen, or on YouTube or Facebook, whatever you prefer.
Sure.
I don't know, pick a platform. What do I care? I tend to look at our website, but that's just me because I'm a little biased. Okay. In the end, is there such a thing as too much of a good thing? Is 23 races too many?
Okay, so for me as a fan, no, I don't think so. But yes, as the human beings that have to work these races, yes, of course there is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a limit. Yeah, there's a limit, and how long you can be away. I mean, I don't know. They're humans, right? I get that there's some part of it is that you're in Formula One. It's a high churn kind of thing that you do this for some amount of time. Most people don't do it for a long time. And then you move on to something else. And that's the nature of it. But it doesn't have to be that way. You know, we don't have to run people to the bone in order to be successful. Like, that's such a weird model. Why does it doesn't have to be like that. And, triple head, I don't, that's hard. Like, I don't know how they would do that over and over and over again. You just can't run that kind of a season. And some of your personnel isn't going to be able to be duplicated, I don't know how you split up Toto Wolff's time or, Adrian Newey's time or something. Like, there's going to be key people in the top of your management that you can't just have, 4 teams, but they can't, nobody does that now because they can't afford it. Why would, how could you run 4 teams, that each driver would then have 2 teams that you would run, in parallel instead of each driver just having their own team. I mean, I just think the logistics of it would be very hard. And for what? I mean, I think the other thing too, is that if you can saturate the market as well, because you're never going to have 23 great races. I mean, it's what the NFL does, right? Like the NFL, you have 12 games. You better be watching. We're already in week 4. I hope you're watching because you only got, 7 more weeks or whatever. So that kind of scarcity is what really keeps football going, as opposed to baseball. It's like, oh no, I missed the Nats playing tonight. Oh, well, I guess I'll watch 700 other baseball games, right? That are in a season. So I think you kind of have to find the sweet spot even though I, as a fan, said, "Oh, sure, I don't mind. I'll watch 23 races. That's fine." There's a saturation point, right? And that you want to be at good tracks, so you have a good race every time, and you eliminate some of the filler that doesn't get, that we could live without. So, I mean, I guess I'm mostly concerned about the human beings that are working in the teams, but there is a side to it, the commercial side of it as well, is that you don't want to have too many races.
And it's the sort of, it's like, I think, you're right. You talk about staff rotation and those kind of things. And, it's not like you can just say, okay, look, we got 2 triple headers. The first one, Toto's going to take that one. And then, the second one, who could we send? We got, let's see, Nigel in accounting. Let's call him and have him step in for Toto. Right. And then Emma in fabrication, maybe she could just step in for, I don't know, pick a person,
she could be Bono.
She could be Bono. Emma could step in for Bono. And so then you've got, those kind of things. And, it's difficult. You're right. You always think of like attrition or losing a lot of your senior management and those sort of things, or people that have been doing this quite a while. And make, that's what makes it a well-oiled machine. You can't just instantly Google wisdom. This all comes with time. It just, that's the way it is. So I think that the even staff rotation would be difficult to replicate the kind of performance level that you're equating from A team to try to get that from B team.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, as you were talking about that, right? Like, we tend to focus right on the very visible positions, right? The team principals, the drivers, those kind of things. But even each of those mechanics, everybody has a very specific job, and that's why it does operate the way it does. One guy's job is, front right squiggly bits. That's his entire job, right? And so you can't just replace, right front squiggly bits person with another squiggly bits person. That's, it's not, that's how it's able to operate at this peak level, is because it's so specialized in that way. So I don't know. I just think that it's not that easy. It's not that straightforward. And I think that, both, Andreas Seidel and Toto Wolff have a real point,
there's a lot of attrition there.
And they're the ones that have to deal with that, like, I don't know, Michael Massey doesn't necessarily, he's the one that has to deal with it, right? Again, just like all of our own jobs, it's not the CEO that has to deal with it. It's your direct manager, right?
Right.
That is the one that has to go, okay, guys, I know this is tough, but we're going to pick it up, and we're going to go fly to Miami, and then we're going to fly to Italy, and then we're going to fly to Brazil, and we're going to hold this all together. And it's just not, it's just going to be, and then I think, what do you do to your product? So
yeah, everybody's living in quiet desperation there,
we could just get rid of Miami. That would solve a lot of problems.
Yeah. Right.
And Sochi, that would be fine. We can get rid of Sochi.
Yeah.
And Spain. See, look, this, I can help you out. Formula One. France, that's fine. We don't need France.
Right. See, there you go. There's 4 races right there. That's one triple header gone.
Right. Problem solved.
Easy.
I could do this. That's right.
So anyway, it's
I think it's
there's a lot of attrition, a lot of human costs, there's a lot of wear and tear, and traveling, heck, just traveling from one state to the other in America is difficult enough, but traveling around the world with tons of cargo and making sure everything shows up and is working. I mean, the logistics alone is a nightmare. And so all the men and women from marketing to hospitality to PR to mechanics to, race and technical staff and strategists and the IT group and the technology group. And, it's just a lot of work.
And what does that look like for somebody like Haas or Alpha, right? Like, or Williams, right? So it's one thing.
Well, they don't have a phalanx of employees sitting back in Brackley like Mercedes does.
Right. They don't have 100 people back at the factory, right? There's 60 people and that's it. So I think that, and I think that starts much sooner, probably around Force India, right? It starts probably around Aston Martin back that you kind of like. Alpine probably also doesn't have the same kind of staff, just, people, engineers, mechanics, caterers.
With Haas, you've got the race team, you got Gunther, and then Gunther's valet back at the office, and that's it.
Right. That's it.
That's what you got.
But I think that starts pretty pretty, there's probably only 3 teams that have, and they don't have enough. So it's like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like if Mercedes and Red Bull and Ferrari don't have enough, well, then your Alpines and your Aston Martins and your your Alphas. Yeah. They certainly aren't going to, right. Haas is certainly not going to have enough. So but you would hope that somebody looked into this, right? This shouldn't just be some frivolous decision by the FIA. Dominicali's worked, he worked at Ferrari. He certainly has some idea of what this would be like to all of a sudden, he was race director. You know what it's like that all of a sudden you now have to do 23 races and have all these triple headers. What effect would that have on people?
Yeah, I don't know. Stefano's trying to remember what would have been the maximum number of races he did when he was there in F1 in particular, 17, 19, I don't know, something like that. But
yeah, so I mean, the people there work in this sport as well. And so I would hope, just like when we talked about Halo, somebody has to have thought through all these permutations. It may not be clear to us what those are, but hopefully the FIA has worked through all these permutations to know that this will work and that it's okay. And you're not just going to have burnout or injury, because I think that's the other thing you worry about in sports as well.
Yeah, for sure.
People start to put too much stress on their body, and you start having injuries, and it's not just the drivers, right? Right. All the mechanics and the engineers and everybody else that's out there doing physical stuff, right?
Yeah.
So,
and they all have families at home and everything else, they have lives to lead and kids, and it's difficult.
So I just think that there's some sort of glory behind the idea of like the chug and burn kind of mentality, but I don't. It's not living your best life, and why does it have to be that way?
Right.
Can we find something that gives us the right number of races and yet lets the teams be human beings and have a life and a family or dogs or whatever you want your life to look like, have that. There has to be some in between that both of these things can happen. And it's not just that you give up 2, 5, 10 years of your life to the sport. It just doesn't seem healthy. So
speaking of living your best life, I want to talk about Adrian Newey and his bicycle. There goes Adrian.
Did you get that just for this story?
I've had it for quite a while. There goes Adrian.
That's nice.
That's him. So am I the last human on the planet to know that Adrian Newey had a serious bike accident during the summer break and had to have several operations and a lengthy recovery time, missing several races? How did I not even notice his absence on the pit wall? I mean, what planet have I been living on? I think everybody's going to, comment on this. Yeah, you dummy. Didn't you see him on the pit wall for the last 7 rows? Well, no, I wasn't really paying attention because he's kind of hit and miss on which races he goes to and doesn't go to. Right? He doesn't go to all of them, so I didn't think much about it. And then I wasn't looking for the last 6 or so races to look. I'd be honest with you, I wasn't focused watching on the race looking for an Adrian Newey absence trend.
You weren't sitting there going, "Where's Adrian Newey?"
I don't have a bingo checklist for all the team bosses and aero guys.
Right.
Where's Ruth? Is Ruth there? Yes, Ruth's there. Okay, got it.
Okay, good.
So I don't. Yeah, I'm not doing that. So I had no idea that was a situation. Yeah,
that is
no idea.
I don't know.
Well, he's back. He came back in Turkey.
Oh, good. I'm glad that
he was back, and just in time to cure some of the team's car setup issues that they found, and had them on their back foot in Turkey. So, according to the team, and specifically, I'm talking about Marco Helmet. His absence wasn't especially damaging to their efforts, but he is a very welcome figure back at the office, and they feel like he immediately identified some car setup changes that were probably causing some of the issues. Now, the team feel that Austin will definitely be a Mercedes Lewis Hamilton track. So if Red Bull achieve anything there, that would put Max ahead of Lewis. Then that would signify that given Merck's newfound straight line speed, we'll talk about later, then Adrian has been working his magic in Austin, but he's back. So I'm glad he's back. I had no idea you were out. Apologies. I would have sent you a get well soon tweet of some sort, but wow. So there I had no idea. I
I like that Helmut Marko was like, well, we don't need him. It's nice to see him. And then the next breath is, but he fixed a lot of shit around here. So I'm glad he came back. Right. Like, okay.
Right.
Like,
yeah, we could take him or leave him, but it's nice to have him around because he found a lot of crap that was wrong.
yeah, right. Right. With his little cardboard, cutouts of the cars because, why use software when I can just, use pine wood and create the next Red Bull model. So I didn't know. I'm glad he's better. I'm glad he's back. And I do love a good quote that is both damning and praising at the same time.
Breath. Yeah. You want to marginalize Adrian as much as you can. You don't want to overplay it, But, it was handy that he fixed some crap. So.
Yeah, it was nice. But, I don't know. It's not like I have like a GPS tracker on him or something. Like, I don't know. He could be like Bonato and maybe he just hangs out with the engineers now. And just because I don't see him on the pit wall doesn't mean he's not there. It's just that he's not on the pit wall.
Right. He could be back working, beavering away on the 2022 car. What do I know?
I don't know. Yeah, there's like this little chisel, right? He's just back there chiseling that out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's back there with clay modeling.
Exactly.
Is this the A pillar? Okay.
That's right. The little squiggly bit here, little squiggly bit there, and we're done.
That squiggly bits because the right squiggly bit person is better than the left squiggly. So
of course he is. But
so anyway, that's what happened.
Glad he's back.
Yeah, me too. Hey, next up in the news, you remember your friend and mine, Danica Patrick, right?
Yeah, my friend. Yes, I remember her.
So Danica tips her for F1. This is compliments from the fine folks over at Motorsport. Former IndyCar driver Danica Patrick says that F1 needs an American driver to boost its reputation in the sport. Now, before I get to her recommendation, we've talked about this quite a bit over the years. And as I've argued, that if that was truly the case, that F1 needed an American drive to really boost its reputation in the sport, then the entire U.S. audience would have been huge F1 fans, as well as being big Scott Speed or Alexander Rossi fans.
Right.
But they weren't, and they aren't. Okay? So is the proof, therefore, in the pudding? Now, at the time, when Scoot was in the series and Alexander, people said, well, okay, maybe Scott being a big fan of Scott Speed and him, revitalizing America's interest in F1 is a little bit of a reach because Scott really needs to be driving for an American team. And then it would be big in the U.S. So an American team comes along, and that hasn't revolutionized America's interest in F1 either. And even when Haas had a chance to hire an American driver, they didn't, and they haven't, right? So I've said all along that it isn't about bringing F1 to America. You have to take America to F1, and that's a big difference. In fact, I can prove it. They did not bring F1 to America. They took America to F1. How did they do that? They did it like through Netflix, right? They've done more with that Drive to Survive on the front of that than what really F1 in the past has done, or race promoters are doing in the U.S., right? Hanging up a banner outside of the Indy 500 track in Indianapolis Motor Speedway, that some banner tied up there with some twine that says F1 race over the Indy 500 sign is not really promoting it, right? And so so anyway, I think that's kind of a big deal. And that's a good example where they've brought Americans into the Formula One world. See, they didn't bring F1 into the American world. They brought Americans into Formula One world. And you and I have been saying this until I'm blue in the face. For years now, I've been saying this. And Netflix obviously proves it. Now, I know what you're thinking.
Netflix are real bunches, aren't they?
It was that season 1 when Dan said that. So anyway, here's what Danica had to say. Are you ready for some Danica?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. I understand. She's not saying this. I'm saying this. What Netflix has done, and I think that's what Here's what Danica said. I understand. No, I said that. I understand what Netflix has done, but I think that's what Danica's coming at it too, talking about Netflix, right? And she said, quote, I definitely think that the Netflix series Drive to Survive has been a big deal. She told this to Motorsport. I've had so many people over the years come to me and say, hey, have you seen that? Did you see that? Wow, I'm super interested in Formula One now. I think it humanizes, that it gives it storylines. It's a way to really try and understand what's going on in the sport. End quote. Well, she's absolutely correct. You will recall Grace and I spoke at great length about how we got into the sport. And once we got into the people and the politics and the storylines of the sport, we were absolutely hooked. And when we read about the people behind the helmet, the politics behind the team, and the personnel behind the wheel gun, we were absolutely hooked and enthralled with Formula One. And that's exactly what Netflix does, because even with the paddock walk, you don't get to see any of that. And I've had very blessed to have been able to be part of the media and be in the media center and in the pit lane and the paddock and garage area, and it's a whole different world back there, right? And so,
how would you like to come home to a bartender who will fix you any cocktail you want?
I'll have an old-fashioned.
I'll have a margarita.
Now you can with the new Bartesian Duet home cocktail maker. The new Bartesian Duet, Bartesian's most compact cocktail maker, crafts premium cocktails at the touch of a button. Choose from over 50 different cocktails. You'll always get freshly mixed, perfectly balanced cocktails with the Bartesian Duet cocktail maker. And now, get our best deal ever on the new Bartesian Duet, plus free shipping when you go to bartesian.com/cocktail. Entertaining? The Bartesian Duet is ideal for parties. No need to stock all kinds of mixers for complicated recipes. Every guest gets the cocktail of their choice in seconds. Bartesian makes a wonderful gift for anyone who loves a fine premium cocktail. And now, get our best deal ever on the new Bartesian Duet, plus free shipping when you go to bartesian.com/cocktail. Hurry, offer ends soon. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail. Bartesian.com/cocktail.
Paid actor portrayal.
I didn't see it coming. Life can be so unpredictable. After losing my dad, it made me think about my family if something were to happen to me. The mortgage, car payments, and all the other bills. Even things like our annual summer vacation would be out of reach. I had heard about life insurance through Ethos and how easy it was to get coverage. They were right. I knew it was time to stop putting it off and get life insurance right now. I got on my computer and went to ethoslife.com. In just 10 minutes, I was covered, and boom, family protected. Thanks to Ethos, my family won't have to worry about the bills if the unpredictable happens to me.
Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at ethoslife.com/audio. That's ethoslife.com/audio.
that's what she's saying, and that's why it's been successful, and I agree with her. Now, she continued, if there was an American driver that they could cheer for, then I think that you'd see what you'd see is more coverage here, meaning here in the States. Whether it be, late night TV, magazines, morning news, just sports coverage in general, there'd be a reason to cover it. And I think that would definitely help, end quote. So recent rumors, you and I talked about this on previous podcasts, have Michael Andretti interested in getting into F1. And while many thought Haas would be the contender, I disagreed. I argued that Sauber Alfa Romeo would be a much better choice given Mazepin's investment in Haas.
Right.
The thought of Andretti leading an American team with American driver is very appealing. And Colton Herta is usually the name that's mentioned as an American driver that might be good to move to F1. So when asked about Colton Herta as a candidate, Danica said this, quote, definitely it's something that you want to do and you feel like you have an opportunity to do well. I mean, he's not going to become become a worse driver when he's gone. If that doesn't work out for him, usually Formula One drivers have quite a bit of credibility to try and come over and drive an IndyCar. So I think it's a totally great opportunity, and especially if there's something that he's really excited about. And I think that's really cool. And to have it be an all-American outfit, I think that'd be great. I'd love to see how that goes, end quote. So I ask you all listening this, and Grace, I ask you that, and your cat. I ask you, what do you think? Would Andretti F1 with Colton Herta as a driver drive more fans, more U.S. fans, interest in the sport? Was Haas just missing that American driver because they were an American team in the sport? Were they just missing that American driver to truly transform American fan interest as a fully American operation, which is what was being suggested here with Andretti and Herta? Or does the Andretti name lend credence where Haas didn't? Not quite sure why, because Gene Haas has quite a legacy in motorsport.
Oh, but he's not Andretti.
Well, he's not Andretti, of course. Yeah.
Right. So I think that, yes, Haas does have a lot of credence in motorsports, but everybody knows who Mario Andretti is, and then,
right,
Michael Andretti. Right. So I don't know anybody who has bigger name recognition in the world of motorsports. Right. Like if we were playing Family Feud, Andretti would be number one.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yep.
So I think that in that sense, that's the name everybody knows. Right. It's like Joe Montana. People know who Mario and Michael Andretti are. So
Andretti name lends credence where Haas probably didn't. So that would help.
Right. Especially for, we're talking about the layperson. We're talking about my mom or something like that. Right. We're talking about somebody who doesn't really watch it, or who maybe knows about it. But I think that, I welcome Andretti to give it a go. I just think it's been hard because what American ventures have been in Formula One haven't been particularly successful.
Yep.
And I just don't, I agree. And we've talked about it. I just don't think that's a way to get American fans. I don't think Bernie was ever interested in American fans. And that's why he said, right. Though they just don't like us. Right. Or whatever. Cause he was never actually interested in, bringing F1 to America or courting that group of folks. So to him, it was a nothing, but Liberty Media, I think, has, reached out more. They've tried to have more of an American impact, but I just think that we're just, I used this example before, and maybe it's because I'm wearing a Wizard shirt, but when Rui Hashimura, who's Japanese, started playing for the Wizards, there are exponentially more Japanese fans at a Wizards game now and that I've ever seen. Right. And so you just won't see that if you suddenly had, American expats wherever they live. They're just not going to suddenly show up because an American is doing something, not in the way that the Japanese, individuals that live in the DC area have shown up at Wizards games, right? It's exponential. And I think the same thing happened, it's like the Gao Ming and that kind of stuff. So they support their players anywhere they go. It's not how Americans operate. And we really just, we're separated. We're such a distant country from other countries, right? We don't have that same sense of sportsdom. I don't know. The baseball, we have our own World Series and we only have one team from Canada in it. We don't need the rest of you in order to support our sports, right? So I guess is what I'm trying to get at here. But I think it's just different. And so to think that same sort of model of Rui Hashimura plays for the Wizards and all the Japanese people will come and watch the Wizards games just is never going to work with Americans. It'll work with Japanese people, will not work with Americans. So stop trying to apply that model.
Yeah, and I think kudos to Liberty because, a couple things. They're a little bit on the record as saying that they're going to really, focus on America. It's an American company. They care. They wanted to have multiple races in America, that kind of thing. So they're kind of on record there. But credit to them because I do think the Netflix program was a real good move for them because that's where they're bringing America to their product. Not bringing their product to America. And that's a big difference. And I think maybe that's doing more for American interest in Formula One than having an American team or an American driver is. Because you think about a lot of these people that have gotten into the sport because of watching that series, but they have no issues in getting into the sport and instantly becoming a Ricardo fan or a Lewis fan or a Max fan or a Lando fan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I got into the sport, it wasn't, I got into the sport because there was an American driver. I got into the sport and I absolutely loved, Prost and Senna and Jacques Lafitte and all of these great drivers, that have come along, Schumacher and JV and all of them, they're all great and none of them are American.
Yeah. I think the other thing too is that especially when Formula One was carried on speed, even when it was on Fox, right? I mean, it's different now that it's on ESPN. It gets a little more coverage, but it still used to be like when something would come across the ticker at the bottom of the screen that was F1 related, I was like, oh gosh, because there's some scandal, there was an accident, something terrible.
Yeah, right.
Like it was never good. If Formula One made the ticker at the bottom of a sports channel, like made
Something
ESPN
happened.
sticker, something terrible that I didn't want to know was about to roll across my screen. And so I think we're finally getting to a place where that's not happening, right? Like Formula One comes up and it's like, look, Lewis won, or look, Max won, or watch the race this weekend because Lewis and Max are going to run into each other again, whatever. But, I do think that's true because in the United States, I think when I started, which was sort of when in 2000, when social media started being a thing and, having podcasts and websites were sort of a thing. If it wasn't covered in Autosport, which I had to wait 7 extra weeks to get because it came from England, I didn't know about it because there is no coverage here. And so I think that is what Netflix is able to do because it's not on regular television, right? It's on a streaming channel that anybody can watch it if you have Netflix. You don't have to have paid for the extra special package to have ESPN or whatever in order to have the coverage or to have speed, right? When that still existed, to have that kind of coverage. So now I think it's just always a lot easier to be global. It's a lot easier to know if your soccer team is some obscure soccer team in Croatia. It's a lot easier now to watch that obscure soccer team in Croatia than it would have been 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, you probably see that on beIN Sports or something. Who
right.
knows?
So I think that's a lot, it's a lot more access that you can get. And so I think that's what Netflix gives you. It's the Olympics, right? It gives you that entranceway to care about something. Like I think I told the story about I was totally engrossed in archery during the Winter Olympics. I don't watch archery. I don't know anything about it, but I was drawn in because it was just like this interaction between the two guys for the gold and the silver, and like the story was fascinating. And so I watched. And so I think that is what Drive to Survive, no matter how much we like it, don't like it, mock it for its like kind of truthiness, that it is an entranceway into the sport. And then I try not to worry about the lack of truthiness of it because people will, if they really get into the sport, will realize, well, they watched a different race than I did. Yeah. Right. They'll get that.
Right.
I did want to know though. So so first of all, when I read the headline, I thought this was about Patrick Head and was really excited. And then it was not.
No,
it was about Danica Patrick, a little less excited, but I like that her quote is just like, people are like, oh, Drive to Survive. That's great. Have you watched that? I'm sure many people have asked her if she was in it, because that is definitely still a problem that people do not know the difference between NASCAR and IndyCar and Formula One and DTM and, sports cars, and it's all NASCAR. And so I'm sure that people are like, I watched Drive to Survive and I didn't see you in it at all. Right. So I'm sure that happens to her, and right on her that she didn't include that in her quote, that I'm sure people have asked her why she wasn't in it. And I do wish it was about Patrick Head, but you can't have everything.
Yeah, you can't have everything,
and
man.
So I think it's okay. Although, I don't think this is a later story, but did you see that she's going to be doing the commentary for Austin?
It is a later story. I had that for Albin's Cats. That's all right.
Oh, all right. We'll save it. I'm sorry. It's not in your notes. That's why I was like,
right.
All right.
I know.
We keep that a surprise for each other.
Yeah, it's a little surprise.
All right. Well, then we'll talk about it there. But nonetheless, I think she's got a point. I think we've beat this horse.
Well, we have, and we've talked about this a lot over the years.
It just isn't going to work.
We've totally talked about it. If you're a longtime listener, hearing, same arguments that we've made. And I understand. I don't want to belabor the issue we've talked about.
I do it in my real life too. I literally start every story with, I don't know if I've told you the story before. And regardless of if you answer me or not, I'm still telling you the story. So you might as well just take it.
Right.
It's life.
So, we've talked about it. 'Cause it's like there's a fine line between assuming everyone has listened for 300, 800 shows. But, and I hate repeating myself, but we have so many new listeners that have never heard, a lot of thoughts on that. So, it's a fine line, and I don't want to belabor the point for longtime listeners. So apologies to you out there for rehashing something we've already. Let's move on, shall we? Red Bull is still asking questions over Mercedes' pace.
Of course,
that's right. Red Bull's like, what the hell? This is via the fine publication called The Express. In Turkey, the Mercedes was faster down the straights with no DRS than Red Bull were with DRS.
Yes.
Now, there are a lot of elements at play here, including aerodynamics and tire performance. But for Red Bull, they think Mercedes has found a new level of speed and acceleration since Silverstone. And they asked the FIA to check into it, which the FIA has denied.
Not good enough, damn it! Not good enough!
Right?
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. Now, despite the FIA not being interested in reviewing the situation, Red Bull are, and they're keeping a very close eye on the situation. And before you dismiss it as well, even though Mercedes said they just improved the drivability of the car, but the engines are all the same ones as the ones at the beginning of the year. It is interesting to note that Red Bull say both Williams and McLaren, also Mercedes engine customers, also improved their overall pace since Hungary, leading some to suggest that Mercedes is just using a lot more power on Saturday and Sunday. And so Mercedes, or Red Bull rather, are not giving up on this, and they're keeping a close eye on this because they think something has changed. They're not necessarily saying that there's skullduggery, but they are saying that there is something going on. Now, Toto has
but they are saying that there's not.
They are saying that there's not. Yeah. So Toto's simple answer to that is this, quote, listen carefully, folks, quote, we understand our car better under the rules, which caused us problems at the beginning of the year, end quote, Wolf said. Now, the car the car has more speed than in spring and summer because we set it up differently, end quote. Okay. The operative word here, folks, is, quote, we understand our car better under the rules, end quote. The key under the rules is the operative word there, meaning that they've really scrutinized the rules and they feel like now they've found a way to gain performance and still be within the rules. If that's how I'd read it.
Yeah, they found a loophole. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I'd read it if I was Horner.
I just like that Horner's like, hey, well, this is like a sibling asking a parent, hey, my brother's doing this thing. And the parent goes, yeah, I don't care. And the sibling's like, that's all right. I'll keep watching them. What does that mean? Like, what does that mean? Red Bull's going to keep watching it. They don't care, right? Like, are you like with the Ted Kravitz spyglass over in the, looking into their pit? I don't know what that just cracks me up. The idea of like, fine, you don't care. Well, we still care. We're going to watch them.
Don't worry we'll keep an eye on them for you.
Right. Yeah, right. Like we got it. We don't need you, Michael Massey. Yes.
Yeah. No one does.
No one does. That's right. Yes. Better under the rules. That's great.
Yep. All right. So it's time then for Grace's favorite segment, which is Albin's Cats. Oh, there's nothing like a good tuba. That's what Paul listens to. The top 100 tuba hits of the 1800s.
Some Oompa merry-go-round music.
Oh,
that's nice.
He loves it. Loves it.
All
right. So first was Danica Patrick is going to be joining the Sky F1 team, broadcast team this weekend in Austin. Why not throw the Sky team a curveball by throwing an American in there? What better way to sauce up a British broadcast by throwing a Yankee in there? And I've seen her on broadcast originally pretty damn stiff and not very likable, in the original. Now, the last one I ever saw her do was on NBC, and she actually did quite a bit better, to her credit.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I thought she was quite a bit better. Yeah, it would be for anyone, right? So, so she did do quite a bit better on the NBC broadcast. So we'll see how she does. She could be like, remember Nico was a little awkward in the beginning.
Nico is still awkward. I think they should not hire. Nico is not.
It's not his gig, is it?
I was gonna say. I think the thing too is that much like Nico, just his normal personality isn't like bubbly. I don't know what the right descriptor is, and it's how I feel about Danica Patrick too. Like, she's not a person that I would be like.
She's not a warm fuzzy.
Right. I want to listen to you tell me things. She's not personable. I mean, that sounds really harsh. I'm sure she's a very nice person.
I'm sure she's delightful, but yeah,
not everybody has that engaging personality, which is what you need, especially in auto sports where there can be a lot of dead time, right? Again, I always joke that however many laps you're into the race, when they show you the restart again, well, if you're on lap 2 and they're showing you the restart, this is going to be a long 50
race.
Laps, right?
Yeah, right.
We didn't even make it a full lap before they showed us the restart again. So if we have one of those in Austin, which we shouldn't, we usually don't, but if we did, boy, I hope she has a lot of filler, because that's what Crofty starts doing. He just starts like making up stuff and you're just like, just focus, man. So I just think it's hard. And in comparison to other sports where there's kind of constant action, Formula One doesn't always have that. And so I do think it makes it harder. And I don't think she kind of has that. She doesn't kind of have a broadcaster personality, but I'm glad to see she's been doing better. We'll see how she does. Yeah. I don't know.
Hey, it brings up this question. If anyone out there listening knows the answers, let me know. But as far as Formula One statistics, I don't know who is doing all this, the stat work and number crunching and information.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Because during the broadcast, everyone makes it sound like it's Crofty, and he is a stats guru, and he comes up with all these numbers. And well, there's only been 2 Spanish drivers and blah, 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 in 1962 and 19, and everyone pawns that off. And he always says, well, I got to think about that. I'll have to look at those numbers. So they always pawn it off that Crofty is the guy coming up with all these miraculous stats. Now, I don't know if Sean's still doing the stats for the Sky crew, or if it's someone else at Sky doing it, or whatever it is.
It has to be in his ear.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But who's doing the numbers and who's harvesting the data? I know Sean used to do it for the NBC crew and for Speed, and he, Sean is brilliant at that, and so I know he did that. And the crew would always mention, our Sean, our stat man, and they'd always mention Sean, and fair enough. And so, but I don't ever hear him talking about who the person is for Sky that's really doing all the numbers. And to whoever that person is, I want to give you a shout out, because you're doing a good job, and Crofty's taking all the credit for it. And nobody's mentioning you. So I'm going to mention you. If it truly is Crofty, color me absolutely stunned. And that's awesome.
It doesn't seem very congruent with the other things that he shares during a race, right? I mean, I don't think he's Sebastian Vettel when it comes to these things, right?
Right.
Vettel knows a lot of just random stuff apparently about Formula One, and he watched it, and he has that kind of ability. But I think the other thing is that it's like when you're giving a presentation at a conference, right? You can't both give the presentation and think about the presentation at the same time, right?
Right.
So, which is what that would require is that Crofty would have to be speaking about the race at this time, and I'm going to do this thing, and thinking up here at the same time about some random statistic about Catalunya.
Yeah.
I think it would just be too hard, and that's why you have a guy in your ear telling you these things, because that guy can go, or girl, that person can go, hold on. Here it is, right? And give it to you, because they don't have to be talking at the same time that they're looking something
they're
up.
Just calculating stats. Yeah.
You can't do both, right? And so I think it would be, even if Crofty does have a Sebastian Vettel like encyclopedia memory about Formula One, I think it would be very hard to be focused on both presenting.
Well, it's that instant recall,
up, right?
That instant recall while you're broadcasting would be very difficult to do.
They know because sometimes those stats are really like
obscure.
Right? Like, this is the 76th time a bird has flown across the track and almost got.
I don't. Who tracks that?
Nobody knows that, right?
I mean, Sean probably does, but other than that, I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, some of the stuff is just like, you don't just have that. Even if you are like a savant anorak of the sport, I don't see how you can recall that. And if you could, then you should be doing something that makes you more money off that skill. I don't know. This seems like
hell yeah.
That's a pretty impressive talent to be able to have. But
anyway, I just thought I don't know. I just threw that out there. So.
I assume that there's somebody feeding it to him in his ear. I don't know how you could really process that.
I agree. Hey, tell us about Daniel Ricciardo and the Buffalo Bills.
So as always, I often like to bring up other sports during a podcast about sports, but
much to the listener's chagrin, I always hear about it.
Well, too bad. I don't know.
We do talk about other things. I know.
I don't know. It's the non-race podcast. I have a little more space to talk about other stuff that I'd like to share with the world that I think some people might want to know about.
By the way, thankfully, my Chiefs beat your what do they call that team now? The Washington football team?
They're just the football team.
That's such a pathetic name. That is a perfect example of the dystopian Stygian hell this country is in right now, when you can't even come up with a name for a team in our nation's capitals.
The football team.
Football team.
First of all, they are not my team.
No, I know.
My team
Pittsburgh.
is the Steelers.
Yes.
They're not Flip's team either. He's a Ravens fan. So, but yes, I was watching Red Zone, and I was just like, oh my God, if the football team beats the Chiefs, I don't know what I'm going to say on Monday, because that's pretty terrible.
Yeah. Thankfully, we won that.
That's pretty terrible.
One.
But no, right. And then the second half happened and everything was fine. But I was a little sweating bullets there for the Chiefs, that to lose to the football team is pretty bad.
Yeah, the irony is not lost on me either.
But yeah, I like that, because they all call, like, if you look at like ESPN, like when they show the schedule, it'll be like, Chiefs at football team. I think that's hilarious. Everybody just calls it the football team. Oh, sure.
Pathetic.
Whatever. Watching a football team. I think they should keep the name. Why try to come up with why be something? Just be the football team for the rest of your life. That's fine.
Yeah.
Everybody likes the team anyway, right? So
Dan likes the Buffalo Bills.
Well, yeah. Well, the Bills aren't crap anymore. They've turned it around. Wait till let me back in there. So
it's because of Josh, Grace.
Josh Allen. Well, my own personal Huxley flip showed me this article. Actually, it showed up again on the Chiron on ESPN that there was this big thing between Josh Allen, who's the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, and Daniel Ricciardo. And so, we're watching PTI, and it shows up at the bottom of the screen. And it was like, we have to rewind back, because it was like, you just kind of catch it out of the corner of your eye, and you're like, wait, did I just?
Yeah.
And we did. So very nice. So yeah, he's a Bills fan. He said that which makes sense. So the Bills have the
Bills Mafia.
Mm-hmm. And they are ridiculous, dangerous, crazy. I often have said that, growing up, I thought it was just my brother and his friends. And then I watched YouTube and I realized it's all men, that they all kind of go through this phase of like dumb shit that they do. And I just thought it was my brother. No. And so that's kind of like the Bills Mafia. They like jump off of vans into tables. And they do all these like boys on YouTube's kind of things, in my opinion. And I think it fits right in with like the shoe juice and all the things that Ricciardo does, and kind of his and his friends' ethos. So I think it is a good fit, as he noted, that, to be a Bills fan for him. I think it does work well. And again, I get to, talk about American sports on our podcast, and it's related this time and not just Grace, picking on Todd's sports teams.
Right. He said he could have picked the Patriots, and then he's a big LA Lakers fan, and he's a big LA Dodgers fan, but he didn't want to pick a California team, so he ended up going. But it was always that tough thing, it's kind of like everybody recall when everybody was telling me to get into Premier League soccer in the UK, but I can't have more than one team that I cheer for. I can only have one. Well, that's pretty tough being a Yankee living over here. I don't know the fan demographics and what the fans are like, and I said, I don't know. Do I pick the boys at Craven Cottage? And they're like, oh, you could. Okay. Well, do I pick? Who do I pick? And everybody's like, well, I just kind of pick one. It's like, yeah, that's not. I was born and raised in Kansas City, so I'm a Chiefs fan. That comes natural. But
what if you accidentally pick like the Yankees of Premier League, right?
Right. Well, it's like everyone's, Manchester United is always, you hear a lot of Americans being Manchester United fans, but I thought, well, that's too obvious. And Paul's a big West Ham fan, always have been. And I thought, okay, well, West Ham, I don't know much about that, but yeah, it seems like a really cool team. Then I thought, I don't know. So maybe pick Arsenal, what the heck, And I was like, ooh, really? Well, you guys told me I could pick whoever, and it didn't really matter, But I keep asking, well, what's the demographics? Are the fans a bunch of chavs, or what's the deal? No, just pick one. I picked the Arsenal. I was like,
that's great.
Ooh.
No,
I was like, what? Lewis Hamilton is an Arsenal fan. Come on.
I just think that is exactly what human beings do all the time. No, do whatever you do. Whatever you do, we will support you. Oh, that's what you picked?
That's what you chose.
I didn't think that's how I was going to have to support you.
Right.
Yeah. So, you don't want to pick the Cowboys or the Yankees
so you pick the Bills.
Yeah. But the Bills, that's totally fine.
Yeah,
they're very successful now after being very unsuccessful. So, and getting very close to Super Bowls and not making it. And so I'm glad that he's found a team.
Who else is a big F1 fan? JJ Watt.
Yeah, I saw that was also in the article. All right, all because of Drive to Survive. I'm like,
Drive to Survive.
All right, sure, people.
That's
come on
exactly it.
Netflix are real bunch, aren't they?
Yep.
I did also have other football. I actually found this before, but other, so I could talk about football during my Formula One podcast, but. So the Jaguars and the Dolphins just played in London, which I apologize for that. Please, I hope you didn't watch that game. I'm sure it was trash. But anyway, there's a picture of George Russell and Alex Albon. So Albon's Cats, and we're talking about Alex Albon, and they were wearing Dolphins jerseys at the game.
Dolphins jerseys, yeah.
And I'm like,
no,
that's terrible. So
why didn't somebody stop them before they did that?
What? No, it would have been. And then I was like, well, would it have been worse if they were Jaguar fans? Like, I don't know which of those fandoms, but you can't be unless you're from Miami. Then I'll let you be a Dolphins fan. But friends don't let friends be Dolphins fans. Come on, guys.
Right.
And I get it that the team owner has a relationship with the Miami Grand Prix. Like, there's a natural connection to why they were Dolphins fans, right? Yep. I get that,
right.
But it's still not okay. I'm not okay with that. And they can't be Dolphins fans. And so I feel like somebody needs to have an intervention. Maybe Ricciardo needs to have a NFL intervention with the two of them, something.
Maybe.
But please don't be Dolphins fans. You
don't want to go down that road.
Why don't you just be Lions fans while you're at it, right?
Yeah,
let's go all the way. That's bad.
What else you got in Albon's Cats?
That was it. I thought the picture.
I have one more thing.
That's good. All right.
I know we're talking about Netflix.
Netflix are real bunch, aren't they?
Right? I know we're talking about that.
Yes, we are.
But has anyone, because I haven't seen anyone talking about this, has anyone watched the series on Amazon about Fernando Alonso?
There's a series on Netflix about Fernando Alonso?
Not on Netflix, on Amazon Prime.
Oh, well, I didn't know. Well,
there's 2 seasons.
Really?
Yeah. And it's really good.
I love Fernando Alonso.
Well, who doesn't? Everyone loves Fernando. Even Lewis. Lewis said this week he's probably the greatest driver that Lewis has raced against. Probably don't really disagree with that much.
Nope.
But yes, it's on Amazon Prime. It's about Fernando Alonso, and I'm into season 2, and it gets a little stretched, it's a little wordy, but all things given, it's done really well, and it's just an insight into Alonso and him coming back to Renault, and it's really good.
I like that it's just called Fernando.
Fernando, that's it. It's called Fernando. And there's subtitles for all the Spanish parts, but all the English parts, obviously you don't need it. But it's great. It's really good.
Amazingly. So I do watch Making the Cut, which is on Amazon Prime. And yet this was never recommended to me. I am disappointed in your algorithm there.
Yes.
Prime Video. Well,
right.
Now I know what I'll be doing this weekend.
There you go. Now
Actually,
you can watch
I'll
it.
be carving pumpkins this weekend. So maybe next weekend I'll be watching some Fernando. But there it is. I didn't even know.
Yep. There it is.
2 seasons. Look at that. Oh,
2 seasons.
16 reviews. Who gave it 1 star? Who gave it 1
that's
star?
Bad. No, it's better than 1 star for sure.
Well, most people gave it 5 stars. I always just like to see who's the one person that gave it 1 star.
No, it's good. It's kind of a side of Fernando you don't get to see.
I want it to be Kimi Räikkönen.
No, that would be funny.
I hate that guy. He's a jerk face.
Yeah, that actually would be funny.
No, is my drinking, is it emptying the bottle or not?
Yeah, exactly.
I just, that would be great. Oh, here it is. Self-indulgent and boring. If this guy could be more full of himself, he would have had reproductive fluid spouting out of his nose. What? This makes Formula One out to be very dull, ego-driven sport. All right.
Okay. You may not be the target audience for that show.
Maybe not. Everybody else, though.
Is it self-indulgent? Well, the name of the show is called Fernando. It is about Fernando. It's produced. The whole show follows Fernando. It's not about F1, but it's chock full of F1, but it's not about F1 per se. It's about Fernando. So yes, of course.
It's kind of like complaining that the movie Senna is too focused on Senna.
On Senna,
well,
yeah,
the movie is called Senna.
It is
so
called
maybe
Senna.
That's your expectation.
Yeah. Right. If you were watching to understand how the Williams, adjustable ride height, the car was designed, you're not going to get that.
No, that is not the name of the movie.
Yeah. Was he full of himself? No, but he's a 2-time champ. He's pretty demanding. He knows his craft as well as anyone. I haven't seen anything that made me think he was a complete ass out of it. I think he's got, let me put it this way. He has very high expectations on himself first. Right. And then everything else falls around that,
But I don't think you make it to the top level of anything, but especially any sport.
Yeah.
Because if you don't bet on yourself, you'd never make it this far, right?
Yeah. That applies to Lewis. It applies to Max, Sebastian, all of the champions.
I think that's true. Yeah. I think that's true of anybody. They have to, I guess because, again, a lot of football players, a lot of basketball players get that kind of criticism. And I'm like, but you're 20 years old, right? You bet on yourself. You have to, right? Like, first of all, what 20-year-old doesn't think that of themselves? But how would you make it this long? Everybody's trying to be competitive and everybody's trying to beat you. You have to think you're great. Because if you don't think you're great, you're never going to make it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I think that it's just a different personality than us, like mere mortals here on Earth have that, we all have self-doubt. And sometimes that can be, imposter syndrome can be a really real thing, and that can really kind of wreck one's confidence. And so you can't have that. There's no space for that to be a professional athlete at the top. You can't ever feel like an imposter, or you'll never make it.
Right. So, no, I enjoy it anyway.
All right. Well, I love me some Fernando Alonso. So
check that out.
Thank you for. Did you just stumble upon it? Like, how did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, it was weird. So anyway, who knew?
I just watch cooking shows and, fashion shows. So clearly I never stumbled upon it.
There you go. All right, well, that does it for this podcast. Be sure to stop by the website, theparcfermé.com. Share your opinion. Just do it decorum and civility. As always, no personal attacks. Also, if you like this podcast, go over to iTunes, give us some love, give us a good rating over there. Hey, what are these off-season podcasts? I'm going to go through, I'm going to pull out all the bad reviews of our podcast, and we're going to read them on air.
If somebody, like Jimmy Kimmel does, right? Like when we read tweets about ourselves, right?
Like, some of those are just hilarious. Some of those you're giving me way too much credit, folks. You know, way too much credit.
I'm just waiting. Somebody is going to tell us that we're self-indulgent and boring. Just
self-indulgent and boring, exactly. Yeah.
Because that's what I would do. I'd be like, well, actually, you guys are. I've been listening to the last 780 podcasts. You guys are pretty self-indulgent and boring, and I don't know why I keep listening.
Only occasionally insightful.
That's
also,
right.
Huge thanks to our Patreon supporters. We could not and would not. It would be physically impossible to do this podcast without you. So thank you so much. You can support us by going to our website, theparcfermé.com. On the right-hand side, it says support us, and you can check on Patreon or PayPal or whatever you want to do over there. But your support is greatly appreciated, as always. And next week, Grace, we got to be talking about the U.S. Grand Prix, which means I've got to go hunt down Paul Charsley.
Right.
He's probably still, on a championship high from winning the Sprint Cup.
Speaking of somebody who has no imposter syndrome, Paul Charsley, right?
Look at that. I know.
Yeah. Top of his sport, right? Like
yeah, exactly. He's on top, man. He's on top.
He always bets on himself.
Yes, of course. So until next week when we do it all over again, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camper, saying so long, Grace.
See you in a couple weeks.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over. I don't feel I've got to prove at all. I don't really want to prove anything. I started as an amateur with no idea or no intention of becoming world champion. I was curious to find out what it was like to drive a car fast, to drive on a certain circuit, to drive a certain type of car.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.